I find it very interesting that the latest videos where I talk about Ireland are getting barely any traction at all. It's difficult to say if the algorithm is suppressing news stories that come from Ireland, or maybe I just got boring all of a sudden. But I don't think I got boring because on my other channel I still get traction. I still get the same traction on the alternative platforms that I'm streaming on. And I get traction on my live stream. It's just when I talk about Ireland, for some reason, I notice that my videos don't get views. So I'll talk more about Ireland then. The reason I want to talk about it the most is because in the last couple of years, I've been saying that social media is censoring people. And the answer that I've got was that my private company can do whatever it wants. You know, it just so happens that all of the social media companies agree on the exact same issues. You know, maybe their CEOs follow the exact same religion and they have the exact same viewpoints and they have the exact same ideas, and they just happen to agree on what to censor. A thing that didn't happen when the internet was initially created. Like you had various forums, you had various places where people talked, and from place to place you would find radically different terms of service. But on social media, they were all the same. And now, not only do we know that the government is actively censoring, it's actually a good thing. So here you have a recording from Ireland, where they're basically attacking Elon Musk for allowing people to see what's actually going on.
In Pearse Street on Saturday, who was actively engaged with the social media companies throughout Thursday, who was actively engaged with TikTok, actively engaged with Meta, so Instagram and Facebook, who was actively engaged with Twitter or X. She said very clearly that social media companies, in particular TikTok and Meta, they were responding, they were engaging with Gardaí, and they were taking down these vile posts as they came up. X were not. They didn't engage. They did not fulfil their own community standards, and that is why we are moving to a situation where these companies do not get to self-monitor. That's why Commission the Man has been established, to make sure that these companies are held responsible, because while some were responsible, others were not. So let me...
So I just want you to understand what is going on. This is literal fascism. Like, they are trying to control the press. Social media is de facto the modern press. The press is supposed to keep the government in check. The government is not supposed to keep the press in check. When the press keeps the government in check, you have the United States. You have Watergate with that scandal. You have the press being able to hold accountable politicians so that the people can vote properly, so that there is transparency and the people can see what the politicians are doing and how their legislation affects the common man. When the government controls the press, you get Nazi Germany, you get Soviet Union, you get all of these authoritarian nations where if you want to be a member of the press corps, you have to do what the government tells you. And this is why they are absolutely terrified of social media, or why they're absolutely terrified of AI. They do not want the common man to have access to information. They do not want the peasant to be able to communicate with another peasant without a chaperone, without some safety guidelines, without a way that they decide, like, this is the correct way to talk and this isn't. And it's no surprise that right now there's a whistleblower which talks about how in 2016 this censorship industrial complex was set in motion, and it was due to Brexit and Donald Trump winning election. Like, they realized the danger of people talking to each other, and the danger isn't towards minorities, it's not towards migrants, it is towards the establishment. It is towards the political class that has forgotten what a democracy actually means. It means that you are elected by the people to do a job. The people empower you to do something, and if you're not doing it properly, they can replace you. They hate the replacement part. They want to be in power forever. They want to create dynasties where they have like families like the Clintons or the Bushes that manage to remain in power in perpetuity, and in order to do that, they can't allow people to talk with each other. Like, I want you guys to understand the idea that misinformation can happen on social media is a very easy thing to fix. Like we saw with Twitter, you can get community notes. You can get the government correcting the story. If there is misinformation, they can provide their own truth. If people claim that 2 plus 2 equals 5, they can actually show how you add 2 and 2 together and you get 4. And the government already has more power than the average Joe. They have their own influencers. They have their own people they can hire in order to produce accurate information in a way that's appealing to the public. They can have a lot of money invested into production, create beautiful videos, and create a lot of clickbait stuff. Like, they can already do that. But the problem is that in order to do that, you need to actually hold the truth. If you're trying to spread propaganda and misinform people, then you can't do that. So what you need to do is you need to do censorship. You need to prevent people from talking with each other. You need to prevent people from approaching certain subjects. And here you have like an actual list provided by a whistleblower with how they plan on doing it. So some of these things I actually agree with. Like, they have a couple of things where they say, well, yeah, we need to combat misinformation with good information. Like, those are things that no one is going to say anything in order to disagree with. Like for example, fill information voids. Okay, perfect. You know, if there's additional context that needs to be added to a story, by all means. I don't care if the government does it or the media does it. Like, that's fine. But when you look at certain other things, you realize that they're actually moving into fascism. So, for example, they have one of the solutions, which is to cut off banking access. Didn't this happen to Nigel Farage? Didn't this happen to the truckers? Like, how can you exercise your human right of freedom of assembly, freedom of association, your right to peacefully protest, if they're going to just be able to cut off your banking access? I mean, look how insidious this is. Like, yeah, sure, you still have your human rights to assemble. Oh, you just don't happen to have a car, do you? Oh, yeah, because cars are pollutants and we're protecting the planet. So you should take public transport. Oh, but unfortunately, you don't have a banking access. So how can you pay? Because you need to pay electronically. We're so sorry. They did this in China, by the way. Like, China already set the stage for this. It's not something that is being invented now. In China, when people wanted to protest against the banks, all the government had to do was to switch their health pass from green to red, and all of a sudden they couldn't travel with the trade. So they couldn't reach the protest. Go physical. This is like the one where you can actually say that it is in fascist land, and probably the person that made this genuinely knew how bad it is. So even like behind closed doors, they refused to add a couple of the bullet points with what go physical means. So one can speculate. I mean, we can go all the way from China, where go physical means arresting the leaders of protests in the middle of the night. Like, they just go to their house and they arrest them, right? I suppose in the United States, maybe they can send the FBI to arrest people that are problematic. You can have groups associated with the government tangentially in order to cause problems. Like, for instance, when people were protesting against Facebook for banning free speech, all of a sudden Antifa appeared. I remember that case in the US during the pandemic. There were a couple of individuals that didn't like the fact that Facebook is censoring. And they were met by Antifa. Like, what the fuck does Antifa have to do with defending Facebook? Defending a multi-billion-dollar multinational corporation? But they were there, and they went physical, right? So one can assume what this means. Probably not good. I don't think like the government should go physical in the context of making sure that everyone is on the same page ideologically. So there's like a lot of these things being said here. Very disturbing. And it leads me to assume that, yes, my private company seems to not be able to do anything at once. My public politician, on the other hand, gets to do everything they want. And that is unacceptable. They are using these measures not for the betterment of minorities or the vulnerable. They are using these measures to remain in power in perpetuity. And to be able to pass legislation that lowers or diminishes the lifestyle of the average person. Anyway, let me know what you guys think, and I'm genuinely curious to see if this video is going to get more views than usual. At least try to give it a thumbs up. Hopefully the algorithm is going to pick it up. And I'll see you guys in the comment section. Take care.